President Michael Sorrell, Paul Quinn College. Good to see you, my friend.
It's always good to see you.
Thank you for having us out at your campus, which is teeming with activity and new buildings and lots of exciting things going on. So before we dig into some of the topics around education and innovation and leadership that are the subject of the podcast, tell us a little bit about the Paul Quinn story to give us an idea, especially those in the Parish community of this gem of a place and your history here.
Sure. So we are 146 years old. We were founded to educate free slaves and their progeny. The school was originally in Austin, Texas, founded in the basement of a church. It was there for 5 years and then relocated in 1877 to Waco. It was at Waco College at the time,
right.
Then it was given the name Paul Quinn College. And it stayed in Waco until 1990. And the school was always an institution that was very committed to educating students who didn't have a lot of options, right? And their vision for it was to give them really strong Christian centering and principles and just to help them have quality lives. So the problem became that those types of institutions didn't have enormous endowments. I mean, we were founded by the African Methodist Episcopal Church,
right.
which did a great job of running the school and really maintaining their sense of independence, what the students would learn and things like that. So you fast forward to the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s, and the school has sort of fallen into some hard times. By the time you get to 2007, Boston Consulting Group had come out and said that the school had a year to 18 months left to be open. That is when the chair of the board at that time called and offered me the job. Yep. Now, just like anything, people don't tell you, if it doesn't work, we'll close the school, right? Which is effectively.
There's some work to do, but not exactly how hard the work would be.
Right. And so what was really attractive to me was one, some of the best people that I met when I first moved to Texas were Paul Quinn alums. And they were just extraordinary individuals. Everyone in my family went to historically black colleges. Now, my family tended to go to places like Morehouse and Spelman and Howard and FAMU. But I'm the only person, except myself and one of my first cousins, are the only people in our family who didn't go to historically black colleges. So we are who we are as a family because of these institutions. But the board gave us the latitude to say, let's just blow it all up and do something different.
Yep.
And the question we came to ask ourselves is, if we were going to design a higher education institution for today to address the needs and the issues of the people that we serve, what would that look like?
What would it look like?
And that's what we're in the process of doing now. So, we got down to 150 students by January 2010, which, I tell people all the time, when you lose 400 students your first 2 years as a college president and you don't get fired, either nobody else wanted the job or the Lord was smiling on you.
No question.
I think it was probably a combination of both.
Yeah, I remember I got to Parish in 2009, and we've talked about it. You were one of the first persons I came out to see as a community leader, and so I drove over here, and I drove onto this quiet campus with some dorms that were in disrepair, and
we had 15 abandoned buildings
50 right up at the front along the line of the fences coming in, and I remember sitting in your office and asking you, so how many students do you have?
I was like 5.
I know, yeah, more than that, but it was about that. It was 145, 150, and you'd been there a year and a half, and I was wondering, what is this, super intelligent, well-educated community leader thinking he's going to pull off here? And now you've done it, 500 plus students, and you become a work college, some things we'll get into in the conversation. I want to start a little bit on this very topic that you were talking about of the kind of the redesign of higher ed, and your aspiration here, I think, to build a model of serving today's kids and students here with the skills and equipping them with the skills they're going to need for tomorrow's complex world. As you look at the broader landscape of higher education, what I see is a system that's buckling under significant pressures, financial pressures, stress and anxiety pressures of their students, questions of value, questions of purpose of the work. I sent you an article recently about your alma mater, Oberlin. 117th largest endowment in the country, nearly $1 billion endowment, $750 million endowment, and yet making huge budgetary cuts because they're in a part of the country demographically where small private liberal arts colleges are having a tough time finding enrollment. So, when you sit back from 30,000 feet as a higher ed leader, what do you see ahead for higher education next 15 to 20 years? Essentially the generation of kids that I'm serving right now at Parish, our 4-year-olds. What do you see out 15 years from now in the world of higher ed?
Yeah, I think those are excellent questions to be asking ourselves. Look, part of the problem is we built the system of higher education on elite schools. Now, full disclosure, all of my degrees are from elite institutions. I got 1 from Oberlin, 2 from Duke, and 1 from Penn, right? The system works for me, right? It worked. But the problem is we sent this message that if you weren't here, you were nowhere. And so the majority of people were being educated in places that higher education itself was saying to them, we devalue you and we devalue your academic experience. And by the way, we're not even going to address the things that you say are important. You just need to do what we tell you to do. So it was this incredibly paternalistic view of life, and it alienated a lot of people. And it also alienated a lot of institutions. And I'll use my experience here. So my entire life, I worked in great places, the best law firms. I worked in the White House. I represented NBA lottery picks, right? Like all these things. So I had this resume that spoke to nothing but accomplishments. I made a decision to come to Paul Quinn, right? I came here because I believed. I believed in these students. I believed in the mission. I believed in the legacy. And I was treated horribly by the powers that be in higher education.
Because you didn't have the background. You hadn't come up through the system.
I hadn't come up through the ranks, and because of where I entered. Right? So the presumption folks made was, I'm here because I couldn't be anywhere else. So therefore, I must not be who my degrees say I am, who my experiences say I am, but who my institution right now says I am.
Right.
So if you did that to someone with my background, who knows better, just looked at you and was like, I think you're crazy and I'm about to prove you wrong. What about people who didn't have that reserve of experiences? So here's the thing. Higher education should be about solving the issues of the day that are important to the people we serve. Period. Okay? Civic engagement shouldn't be poverty tourism, right? If your students are going back every year to the same things and it's never improving, you are part of the problem. What we have done here is we've said we're going to turn the entire institution outward and address the issues of the communities we serve. We're in a food desert. We're going to cut the football program and we're going to turn the football field into a farm. The city had a garbage dump closer than a grocery store. Well, we're going to fight back about that because that's what the We Are Not Trash was about, because people deserve better than that. Why would we continue to shackle our students with enormous amounts of student debt when we have the ability to create a model that does something different? All of these things are what higher education should be doing. But see, we can do that because we were unencumbered by a history of success. We don't have $1 billion endowment. The system hasn't worked well for us and the students we serve. So of course we can rip it up and challenge the notion. And I think more and more schools are doing that. And again, nothing wrong with the amazing institutions that are out there. I benefited from them. God willing, my children will benefit from them because my wife went to Wharton. She went to Sloan. Like, that's what we do. But we spend our days fighting for all kids and all students to have an extraordinary educational opportunity, regardless of what their background was.
So react to these things that I think might happen, and tell me, maybe not possible. That 15 years from now, out of a private school like Parish, Not all 100% of those students will go directly to a 4-year brick and mortar college. There are going to be alternate pathways through degree, certification, badging, credentialing, work study type programs that may enable a person to start a higher learning experience later than 18 years old.
So I think that presumption will be the moment the revolution is televised.
You think it's possible?
Oh, I think there's no way to say it isn't possible,
Yeah.
right? The reality of it is what parents as a parent who sends his child to independent school, right? What we are looking at aren't those alternative pathways, right? We're looking for the keys to the kingdom.
The narrowest of pathways
The
is what we're looking
narrowest of
for, right?
pathways,
It's
right?
not,
Like,
it's
we're
like
playing-
it's 50 schools essentially,
that's
right?
exactly
that
right.
take
Like,
less than
we're
50% of their
playing
applicants.
Those
Yeah,
odds,
yeah.
right? Now, that being said, what I think, when you look at places like Minerva, right, the Minerva
Sure.
Project, like, and what Ben is doing out there,
Yep.
if we define what you're articulating, if Minerva's in there, yes, right? Like, that's a non-traditional place, and I love what he's trying to do. And I support it. I bet on Ben. I think they're going to win. But if Ben doesn't win, someone will take that experience and build on it and figure out something else. So I think that happens. I just don't know how it plays because, look, your parents are some of the best educated parents in this area, right?
Yep.
And I don't know how willing they'll be to be open to the idea of that. But it only takes one kid, one set of parents to start that trend.
Or a demystification effort. We at Parish think a lot of it is around demystifying what folks are already beginning to understand is that not every 18-year-old's ready to go to a college experience that in 2033 is going to cost $340,000 to go to a place like Hamilton where I went or Oberlin where you went. Make that investment at 18 if they can't really see it being work that's going to connect them to meaningful engagement beyond.
And
right?
that was the arrogance of the
Yes,
sector.
that's what you talked about, for sure.
Is that, how do you not have that conversation? How do you pretend that parents aren't concerned about that? How do you tell them, we don't need to talk about that.
Yep.
Like, you just have to trust the process, right? No, you have to create a process that is respectful of what parents are concerned about. This is an enormous amount of money to spend.
Absolutely.
Okay, and you're betting on tomorrow being phenomenal.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And I think that when you look at all of that, right, when you look at what families are doing, what they want, what's important, we have to address these issues.
Yeah, and if a learning experience is seen as primarily transactional, seat time for a degree, and if these degrees, as Minerva is doing, as other entities are trying to produce now with work experience programs, et cetera, if they offer a pathway to a life of meaning and purpose, I think customers, my supposition is not all at a place like Parish, maybe 10%, they're going to start looking at these alternative pathways moving forward. You think we're going to see school closures or university constriction in the next decade to decade and a half?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I don't see any way that can be avoided because the economics just don't work, right? I mean, look, there's only so many people that are going to spend $70,000 a year on an education, okay? Little known secret, much of higher ed was underwriting that with international students.
Right. And discounting.
And discounting, right? So now you've made it harder for international students to come, or made it less desirable because of just everything that's going on in the country. Then you take the discounting issue, right? And for people who don't really understand discounting effectively is just how much money do I have to pay you to come to my school?
To fill our seats, right?
Like that's it. And so when we made a decision, 4 or 5 years ago, we cut tuition by $10,000 and created a model where our students can graduate owing roughly $10,000 or less if they choose to. And, there were some folks who were like, oh, how can you do it? You're not going to collect the money. It's like, listen, we were only collecting the same amount of money anyway. So why don't we just charge what we really were receiving and create a system that works? And we've received a tremendous response from doing that.
Yeah, and I want to shift a little bit to the innovations we're seeing in higher ed, because I think you all certainly have demonstrated it here. I pay attention to higher ed, because for me it's a canary in a coal mine. Right? Canary in a coal mine. For us, we're a tuition-bearing institution. We've got many of the same financial pressures that higher ed universities do, and I think the value proposition of independent schools like Parish are going to be increasingly under intense scrutiny in the next decade to come. At the same time, we are like you at Parish. We are unencumbered by 100 years of tradition, having just added a middle and upper school in 2002 to a school that had been around since 1972. So, we feel we've got this incredible opportunity, especially compared to public systems, to be innovative, to really be independent, to truly set an aspiration forward to what a new independent school model might look at. I think there are higher ed university leaders across the country. You and I admire some of the same. Michael Crow at Arizona State, Joseph Voon at Northeastern. They're out there to be found, who are understanding that merging of disciplines, teaching in an interdisciplinary fashion, ensuring that linking work that's studied on campus to real work experiences in the community is important.
Just in a second, the data is unmistakable in that space, right? So 50% of college students wish that their universities had helped them connect it that way, right? That they had gotten more real world experience. 79% of employers want first-time college students, first-time entry-level employees to come to them with experience.
Yep.
So there's a huge market there that no one thought that maybe they should listen to.
And for prospective parents at a place like Parish who are beginning to look at the college experience, these are important questions to be asking, right? In addition to a robust Romance languages program or your British literature program, which is phenomenal, and I'm not casting aspersions again as two liberal arts guys, we get the value of liberal arts education, but I think how are schools like Hamilton and Oberlin, if you're looking at those small liberal arts schools, how are they mixing the I think inarguable development of the cognitive skills, the creative thinking skills, the writing skills? How are they mixing that with pedagogy and subject matter that connects individuals to the world beyond the campus? Ask those questions. What do your internship programs look like? How does service and meaningful work come into your studies? These, I think, are important questions for a prospective family to be asking. But innovation is the key to value proposition in my estimation. So we're looking at at mastery, not seat time, being a driver of the learning experience. We're looking at learning that is active and hands-on and engaged, that keeps passion and joy high, and hopefully drop some of the anxiety and mental pressures that are so much a part of trying to get into that narrow band of 50 schools that seems to choke off any love of learning. Talk about, in particular, two or three. You've mentioned the football field. You've hinted at the work college. I want to get into that. Let's talk about these innovations that you've developed here and why you think they're so critical, both in designing the new higher ed model, but also bringing meaningful learning to the 18, 19, 20-year-olds that are in your charge here.
So we function with a really simple standard, right? Does it make sense? Right? Just does it make sense? And how would we have wanted to be treated? How would we have wanted to have been engaged with? All right. So I was a student that picked things up very quickly, which was problematic because it meant I spent a lot of time sitting in class just bored. Right. And that doesn't always go well. Right. And so what I try and do here is push folks to say, if you were in class, what design would have been interesting to you? Would it have been fun for you to sit here for 2 hours and listen to Professor drone on? Or would you have wanted an opportunity to immerse yourself in something you cared about?
Yep.
Right? And once you approach it differently, you can do that. So we looked around and we just said, look, if all we're gonna do is what everybody else does, why would anyone care?
Right.
Right? We don't have enough money to
Chase Dr. Turner at SMU, right?
Right.
Just redesign another SMU out here in South Dallas.
like that,
right?
like we don't have that. I was like, and thankfully, he actually is he's doing the same thing we are, except he's got a different clientele.
Right.
So SMU speaks to the needs of the community it serves.
Mm-hmm.
Paul Quinn defines its community differently.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to speak to those issues. If you are in Highland Park,
Mm-hmm.
you have a different set of issues
Mm-hmm.
than you do if you are in Highland Hills.
Right.
Okay? I mean, you can just look at the highway and tell the difference, right? If you're at SMU, it's 75. You come south, we get a discount, and our highway is 45. It's the same highway, right? It's just they discounted it to be in this part of town. So we looked around and said, let's address the issues of the communities we serve. Number one, let's develop an institution that can respond to those things. We're in a food desert, so let's deal with the issue of food insecurity. We have environmental justice issues because of a garbage dump. Let's teach the students in the community to use their voices in responding to
So you
this.
build courses that are actually addressing those issues.
We are building an institution,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
So we're saying we're going to take the whole thing on, right, as an institution. The staff, the students,
Yep.
the faculty, but we are all in on this notion of we over me. The needs of a community supersede the wants of an individual. So it gives us the flexibility and the innovation space to be able to evolve rapidly. Now, there are lots of different ways to define innovation. MIT looks at innovation and they're dealing with it in the rarest of venues, right? Stanford, much the same way. We like to refer to them as Neiman Marcus examples of innovation, okay? Everybody can't shop there.
Mhm.
Everybody doesn't want to shop there.
Right.
We look at our innovation and we say our students shop at Walmart. Their families shop at Walmart. So how about our innovation be the Walmart version of innovation, where there's places here for everyone. And let's deal with the issues that the majority of people have. One of those issues was affordability and access.
Mhm.
So we said, school's too expensive. I'm not going to hide behind the curtain when, every semester my students used to come to me stressed out because they couldn't afford school. They weren't lying on their FAFSA forms.
Yep.
90% of our students in a regular year, 85 to 90% of our students are Pell Grant eligible. 70% of those students have zero expected family contributions. They didn't have it. And for me to sit here and to be callous or ignore the pain that they were in just seemed ridiculous.
Right.
So the other piece that we were paying attention to was our students weren't prepared enough. They were going out to jobs that they weren't prepared to succeed at a high level. And you and I both know that the worst thing that you can do is to have your alums not be prepared to succeed at the highest level. Whatever that level is for them, they have to be able to succeed.
Right.
So we got lucky. We were out recruiting, or I was out recruiting, was in Detroit, and was introduced to a school called Detroit Cristo Rey, which was a work high school. I
They
go
do
in
one day a week out in the community. These are high school students.
These are high school, so it's a work high school. The president of the school walks me through the model. I say to him, why wouldn't this work in higher ed? He
Right.
said, well, they're the work colleges. I said, I know the work colleges. Those are all in rural. I said, they are amazing, but they're all in rural areas. Why wouldn't your model work in an urban area at a higher education institution?
Yep.
He said, no one's tried it. We came back, we did the research. I went out to Berea College in Kentucky,
Yep.
and met with the folks at the Work College Consortium, really put this together, and came back and the board said, let's try it. And we tried it, and it's a huge hit.
So essentially you were the first historically black college to become a work college.
It is the list of first We're the first historically black college that's a work college.
First
We're
urban.
the first minority serving institution that's a work college. We're the first work college in Texas. And then we made up our own version of the work college. We're the first urban work college. So there was no model that existed before we made it up.
I think there are 9 across the country.
There are 9 across the country.
9 or so work colleges across the country.
We're the 8th work college member. We're the 8th member of the work college consortium now.
And essentially, for our families that wouldn't necessarily understand it, if they're out there looking for them, they are generally in rural areas. There is a reduced tuition, which is offset by employers, in your case,
the students,
or work on campus, where students are putting in commensurate work to offset the tuition costs.
And for us, the students, first couple of years can work on campus, then they go off campus. And a couple things, everyone who lives on campus works, and you are required to have a work college transcript. So the work and the academics are weighted equally. And so that innovation has resulted in the last 3 years, enrollment is doubled. We've had waiting lists for the first time in 146-year history. We're out of space on campus, so we've got to put students up in apartments. We've raised the academic requirements. It's now the minimum is a 2.75 to attend, and we still have real issues trying to accommodate all the interest. And what's coming next is we're creating a whole new model of pedagogy around this idea that why don't we marry experiential learning, which is the pre-professional work stuff, with a new version of the liberal arts, with project-based learning, and use the projects as examples from students' real lives. Why don't we teach them to solve the issues of their lives?
Yeah, and that's where they're developing a portfolio of skills, and that portfolio of skills is really what they're going to carry with them through a lifetime.